In a recent discussion on my channel regarding CRISPR, the drug Remdesivir came up, and I thus thought it would be fun to shoot a short video discussing the drug and its significance. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. In this video, I want to have a short discussion on the drug Remdesivir. And Remdesivir, I'd seen it on come up on my web browser, and I believe in Google when I was creating my other content regarding the coronavirus. But it came back up in my discussion with Nicole Ali regarding CRISPR. Shout out to Nicole Ali. Thank you once again for coming on to my channel. But in that, and I would encourage any viewers to go back and look at that interview. I split it into two parts because Nicole and I had a lot to talk about regarding CRISPR. But it came up when she asked me what I knew regarding the pharmacology and toxicology of drugs and treatments that are being proposed for the coronavirus. And I was able to discuss chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine a little bit, but I had heard of Remdesivir after seeing it come up, but I hadn't, with all the information coming out and all the projects I'm working on, I just didn't have a chance to research the drug as much. So I wanted to shoot a video just talking about what Remdesivir is. And so with that, I'm going to jump in. And so there are multiple ways to treat a viral disease such as COVID-19 in this instance. One way to address it has been through social distancing, so slowing the spread or flattening the curve just through minimizing human interaction. You know, right now there's been a lot of talk of a vaccine, which is in the works and which is going to take a little more time to develop because it has to they have to prove that it works scientifically, and then it has to go through all of the regulatory processes and analyses. The drug hydroxychloroquine has been controversially discussed and tossed, back and forth between the White House and the World Health Organization and lots of other parties out there. I've made videos about that here on this channel. And then another potential way to treat a viral disease is with antiviral drugs. So antiviral medications are not new, and they've been around for a while. And what they do is they take advantage of what we know about viruses and viral cycles. So this antiviral drugs pull in virology and immunology in addition to the pharmacology and toxicology. And so what we know is that there are viruses that have DNA within their viral capsules, and we know that there are other viruses that have RNA within their viral capsules. These are called retroviruses, and those use something called a reverse transcriptase enzyme, to ultimately create its own DNA and to further amplify its own RNA so that it can undergo its viral cycle. But to get a better understanding of what that is and of how antiviral drugs work, I'm going to take us back to Cell Biology 101 and just have a very, very brief discussion on DNA and RNA, and probably just briefly transcription and translation. So if you haven't, please click the like button under this video. The likes are free, and that helps my videos and my channel ascend in the YouTube algorithm. So as I said, I'm going to take us back to Cell Biology 101, and I want to shout out Dr. Haywood, who was my teacher, or my professor, who taught me Cell Biology 101 back at my HBCU, Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina. So the only thing I'm going to say about transcription and translation at this point is that in one of my earlier videos, or several of my earlier videos, I discussed how proteins are the workhorses of the cells, whether they be enzymes or receptors or channels or structural molecules. And I'm just going to say that the sequences of all those proteins come from DNA, or our nucleic acids, or should I say DNA is a nucleic acid. So there are actually two nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, and I'm back here with my DNA model here, which is one of my favorite toys. And just briefly, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. So one of the classic findings of biology is that DNA exists as a double helix with a major groove here and a minor groove here, and it is made up of nucleotide bases, deoxyribose sugar molecules, and phosphate groups. And so the colors in this model are green and gold, representing cytosine and guanine, which bind together, and then this orange and blue represent adenine and thymine, which bind together. And so what happens is you create these units where the nucleotide base is bound to a sugar, which is bound to a phosphate group, and that's how a DNA chain, or actually one half of a DNA chain, is created. And once you string all these together and put two chains together like that, you have a double helix. That's a quick and dirty explanation of it. For the sake of this discussion, I'm going to jump over to RNA and say that what RNA does in terms of transcription and translation is that it forms a template from this DNA, which goes out into the cytosol to create the proteins that perform the functions in our cells. That's the classic context for DNA and RNA. So unlike DNA, which is a double helix, RNA tends to exist as a single chain, and there are two major differences. One is that instead of the thymine, which is in DNA, RNA has a uracil, okay, and instead of the deoxyribose, the sugar used in RNA is strictly ribose. So it has, I believe, the hydroxyl group on the sugar molecule. And the third distinction, once again, is that it's a single a single chain structure as opposed to a double helix. And so within cells, DNA can be amplified by an enzyme called DNA polymerase, and RNA can be amplified by an enzyme called RNA polymerase. So that's DNA and RNA, and with that I will move on and talk about antiviral drugs and how those work. So if you haven't, once again, please like this video. So regarding antiviral drugs, they can either be nucleotide or nucleoside analogs. Nucleotide analogs consist of a nucleotide base, a sugar, and a phosphate group with 1 to 3 phosphates. A nucleoside analog consists of a nucleotide base and a sugar, and those nucleosides must become phosphorylated in order to exert their inhibitory function. Speaking of inhibition, once again, when we're thinking about DNA and RNA and viral replication, we once again want to go back to DNA polymerases and RNA polymerases. And so when you think about the root word polymer, a polymer is a long chain of subunits or precursors. And so what the DNA and the RNA polymerase does is they basically create long chains of DNA and RNA, and those eventually fold into their conformations. So just in a simple explanation, when you give these antiviral nucleotide/nucleoside analogs, you're giving precursors or structures that look similar to the building blocks of DNA and RNA, and the DNA polymerase and RNA polymerase see these similar but different precursors, and they try to string them together to create the DNA and RNA chains. But what these precursors do, these analogs, they inhibit those enzymes. So in inhibiting the viral DNA polymerase and RNA polymerase, or sure, in some instances, the DNA polymerase or the RNA polymerase, depending on the virus, by inhibiting those, you can inhibit the viral replication and you can thwart the viral infection. Remdesivir is currently being developed for use as a treatment for COVID-19, and I'm going to leave an article in the description box below which discusses that it works via inhibition of RNA polymerase. So again, it's interfering with the ability of the virus's RNA polymerase to basically create its RNA chains and then create its DNA and then create the proteins that it needs. And there are other antiviral medications. At times, unfortunately, I get a random viral infection in one of my eyes, which is very, very uncomfortable. And as a result, I have to take valacyclovir. And when the whole HIV outbreak took place in the 80s, a drug that came up for treatment was AZT. So antiviral medications have been around for a while, and they're used for various things, and remdesivir is currently being proposed for treatment of COVID-19. Or should I say it's being developed for the treatment of COVID-19. And that's just a mechanism. of Remdesivir. Scientists also have to characterize the drug's absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion profile, and they also have to characterize its side effects. I think they've shown that it's effective in vitro and to some degree in animals, but they have to, go ahead and prove its safety in humans. So that's my video on Remdesivir. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions in the comment section below. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.